everyone, it's your girl Sukhmani coming at you guys with another video. So, it is midweek, that means I have another book review, and, let's bring the first one around. I'm going to be talking about the Immortals of Meluha by Mr. Bhatti. Mr. Bhatti is an Indian author, and I should also let you know that I'm doing this 12 genre, 12-month readathon in which I read a book from a particular genre every month. The month of April is fantasy, which Meluha is. Anyway, so let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to give you the summary, I'm going to give you the pros and the cons, and what I thought about this book. So this book takes place in 1900 BC. A Tibetan warrior-in-chief by the name of Shiva, is presented with the unique opportunity to visit and stay in a land called Meluha, and this is basically described as heaven on earth, the most perfect society in the world, the most perfect place to live in the universe. The only catch is that Shiva and his people have to follow the laws of the land. Makes sense. After the last battle with the Bhadrakis, the tribe agrees to leave their mountainside region to begin the 4-week trek to Meluha. On the first night in Meluha, the people are asked to quarantine and drink a substance to help them flush out their toxins, and, if they have any illnesses or injuries and whatnot, it basically cleanses them. As a result, Shiv is discovered to be the prophesied Neelkant, Blue Throat, that thus propels Shiv into a role that he is unsure of, and which is the destroyer of evil. The basic setup of this book is that there are 3 groups. Suryavanshi, those who follow the path and the light of Lord Ramchandra. The Chandravanshi, who are basically the exact opposites, and are deemed to be lawless, uncultured, and who have strayed away from the path of Lord Ram. And then there is the Naga, people who are only considered evil and awful because of facial deformity, meaning they were born like this, and they're considered awful for no other reason. Now here are the pros of the story. I'm also looking at my Word document because I figured let me just write it all down so there's rhyme and reason to the video rather than talking about everything randomly. It is a good and simple story. The plot is easy to follow. Shiv questioned everything around him. He didn't take anything at face value. Whenever people were telling him X, Y, and Z, he's like, well, I want to see proof. I want to see the evidence. I would rather that nobody knows that I'm the Neelkant, so I can experience the truth and the true nature of this land and its people. Then there are great juxtapositions between a supposedly perfect society and the glaring imperfections. For example, caste system in the book is merit-based, and everyone is equal except for the Vikarma. Now, the Vikarma are the people who are considered to have bad fate, bad luck, and it's only because they may have done something in their past life. For example, if a woman gives birth to a stillborn, it means that she is a Vikarma. It means that something happened to her in her past life that is affecting her now. Or if someone got sick and went blind, it's because he has bad luck. It means that he committed some kind of atrocity in his past life. This is something that Shiv cannot tolerate because he points out that for a perfect and free and equal society, you do tend to discriminate. You know, you treat the Vikarma like they are, or Vikaram, like outsiders when there there are there is evidence to these people being as like having nationalist pride, having pride in the fact that they're Suryavanshis or Meluhans, Like we're talking about someone who is treating it as an outcast, but they say no. I love my country. I love where I'm from. Expectant mothers are supposed to give birth to their children but leave them behind to be raised in a Gurukul Meluha, meaning a Meluhan school. And so the basic setup is that until the age of 15, they're taught everything, every child in that school, whether they're from a low caste to a high caste, they're all treated equally. No one knows each other's caste, nothing. And so, at the age of 15, they choose what caste they want to be in, they choose their vocation, and they apprentice for a year until they're fully accepted into the caste. Like, it sounds good, but the fact that these children are being raised as orphans, but also if parents want to have children, they're basically adopting. They don't know whose child is whose, and if they want a child that is of a specific temperament or of a specific caste or whatever, that child will be given to them. You know? And Shiva was actually horrified at this. He's like, how could you separate a mother from her child? It makes no sense. And then, the big thing, actually. For an honest society, Shiv and his tribesmen were tricked into drinking a substance that could have killed everyone. So, if you're so honest, then why were you dishonest? For such a perfect and judgment-free society, some of the characters were quick to decry Shiv as a barbarian immigrant, alluding to anti-immigrant sentiment. And there are great allusions to modern-day India. Colorism, meaning Suryavanshis were light, Chandravanshis were dark-skinned. Caste system, book was merit-based, but real life is by birth, meaning whichever caste you're born into, that's it. And then you have the concept of Vikarma, which are basically the untouchables. And then here are something that I didn't like about this book. The writing is redundant. The author keeps repeating key details several times. The author told more than he showed. This would detract from the story because the reader needs to be able to draw their own conclusions and see the evidence of the certain characteristics or events. There are discriminatory and colorist practices in this book. The formatting of the book was atrocious. The margins were not consistent. The text of the font were different sizes and even sometimes different types, which is very irritating. Everyone in Meluha fawned over Shiv the moment they found out that he was a new god, rather than getting to know him and test him. Shiv even started to prefer and seek out people who did not want to give him that great honor of my lord. Then I would rather talk to a scientist who looks at life scientifically rather than believe in miracles, or align himself with a general of an army that is mistrustful of him, because he knows that he's going to get honest advice, or, like, just the straight up facts from this guy. Dux, who is the king of Meluha, or the king of Suryavanshi, seemed way too trusting of Shiv, even when his own general cautioned him against this. The king could not put one person ahead of his whole kingdom. He came off as very arrogant and cocky. At some points, it was evident that he was trying to manipulate Shiv against an entire group of people. I understand that you have your problems, but you can't go around manipulating someone, even though this happens all the time. Contains anachronism, and if you guys don't know what that means, it's basically when a book is written in a certain time period, then the dialogue or certain objects or phrases or certain things seem out of the realm of that century or time period. Meaning, if the book is set in, 1500s, and someone is wearing a Rolex watch, that's such a minor detail, but then that takes the person out of the story, because then you're fact checking the author. And in the anachronistic ways of the book was that the way of talking is somewhat modern. When talking about science, oxygen was mentioned. The concept of oxygen wasn't discovered or mentioned until 1772 AD. And this book is taking place in 1900 BC. Were evil and corrupt only because of facial deformity. As someone who has facial deformity, this actually made me uncomfortable. It's like, okay, you're telling the audience that the only reason why the Naga are considered evil and corrupt and terrorizing, terrible, because of a facial deformity? Like, honestly, that made me root for that group out of spite, So that's not supposed to happen. Overall, it's a decent book. I gave it about 4 stars, despite its cons. It was a great storytelling. I read this, I think, when I actually sat down to read it, took me about 2 days to read it. The book definitely has some faults. I hope the writing gets better. I am going to stick with the trilogy, and that is for sure. I'll be reading the next book in May. While I'm doing the readathon, specific genre each month, I think I'm going to just break apart series. Instead of reading everything all at once, break them up in different months. Alright, that's it for now. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. Comment, like, subscribe.